guys, it's Ryan here at Malta Mystic Church. I had a little bit of time in my car while waiting for one of my kids' ball games to start, and I thought I would do a little video about some things that have been on my mind lately. So I've been thinking a lot lately about life. I've shared a lot on this channel about this experience I went through last year in July where I got sepsis and I ended up in the ICU for a couple of days, and it was pretty serious. And I wanted to share a little bit specifically on this video about what has changed for me after sepsis in the areas of our Lord and also in the areas of my life. So I'm not trying to beat a dead horse and share tons of videos about this, but it's just part of my life right now. And I feel like it might be fruitful or helpful to someone out there. And maybe it might not specifically be sepsis, but it might be something where it translates in some way. So I'm sorry it's dark. It's late in the evening. Sorry, I have a real heavy cough still, even though I'm not really sick anymore. So bear with my voice. So recently I was at the library and I had a big stack of books all about our Lord. Just Christian nonfiction kind of books, a big stack. So I know I've told you guys I'm doing a low spend year. I was going to do a no spend, but my husband and I discussed it and he felt better about a low spend. So low spend year. And so I'm getting a lot of my books at the library, and some of you guys suggested audiobooks at the library too. And that was really helpful because I'm able to get some. So anyway, I was in the line. The librarian was helping me check my books out, and it just like came out of my mouth. I wasn't planning it. I didn't really think about it very much. It just kind of came out, and I was like, I almost died in July. It just came out. And I was like, but anyway, so I was like, okay, it just came out of my mouth. And I was like, yeah, I had sepsis. And she was like, oh, wow. And I'm thinking, why am I, I feel like the Lord must have been behind it a little bit, but it just came out. And I was like, yeah, it's like I was planning on going back to school, which I hadn't really shared with you guys too much on here, but I was planning on going back to school. I enrolled, actually started a class. It was like a big thing. I was actually going to go into very specific training, something in the medical field. But when I got into that situation, it was like the clearest thing in my mind ever and in my heart that my place was in the home, serving my husband and children within my vocation. And that was exactly where God wanted me to be and nowhere else. It was very clear. So I was sharing her a little bit about that. And then she was like, wow, that must have been scary. And I said, oh yeah, it was. But then I thought about it and I was like, what, actually it really wasn't. It's like once you're there, at least for me, and I feel like God's grace, being right at that moment in that space of like, I could die, it wasn't scary anymore. And it's really taken away a lot of my fear of death, in the sense of, I don't feel massive anxiety anymore like I used to, and about me or my family, and just, there's a lot of trust in the Lord. And so I told her, I didn't say all that, but I said, yeah. And so now it's like, I know where my place is, and I just want to get to know God even more. I just want to spend my time getting to know him. I want to think about him. I want to be praying about him. I want to build our relationship. Like, that's what I want. And she was like, yeah, I bet your priorities do change after something like that. And it was just such an interesting, a very short, experience with this person, a little chat, but it really helped me just solidify everything that I had been feeling. And I was like, I want to share that on this channel, that, getting to a place like that really does really make you focus in on what absolutely matters. I mean, I was thinking like, I want to be a grandma, like obviously not yet, it's like too soon, but however many years from now, it's a possibility. And I was like, I want to be a really involved grandma if they want me to be. I want to pray for my children and my, sons and daughter-in-laws. I want to be available to them after babies are born, or if they're needing, some help with babysitting, if they're nearby, or I could, make some blankets, baby blankets and some hats. Like, I just want to be very available. I want to continue to really serve and care for my husband, even after the kids are all out of the house. I want to, take care of him, and I want to take care of our home and make a really, it's like all the things I was thinking, like longevity right now, like these are all the things that I want, and it all involves my vocation and my family and our home. And it was as clear as day. And so that's a really, I think, a beautiful place to be in. And I don't think that someone necessarily has to go through not that I went through a near death experience in the sense that I saw anything like I didn't go anywhere, but just being very close to death, having experienced that, I just don't think that's necessarily necessary for people to be able to really hone in on what God is calling them to, what they're really wanting to do. But I did want to share that with anybody who's maybe looking for encouragement in that area about like what really matters to you and what your focus is, and you know what God's really calling you to. And if you're wanting any kind of like tips or maybe some just ideas or concepts to kind of hold on to if you're going through something like that, not that you asked, but if you're interested, you can keep listening. I think one of the big things, and I know people say this all the time, but like getting off of social media, the whole de-influencing ourselves, I think is really important, because the world is always screaming at us for what's important to the world, not what's important to God. And yes, God can totally use social media. There are so many great Christians on social media. There's so many good accounts. There's people thinking and processing. But for me personally, and for some people that I know, you know, just like silencing that for a while, and it can be really helpful. And then also, I have really gone up on my prayer life, like a lot, like really talking to God just all day long. When people say, hey, will you pray for me? Really praying for them, like a prayer, but like really praying for them. I've been more active on a Marco Polo prayer group that I have. I mean, as much as I can be, you know, with my family and stuff, but I love that prayer group. Really focusing on Divine Mercy Chaplet when I can, the Rosary when I can. I started off going to daily mass like almost every day after, well, as soon as I could, going every day, but it was just too much for the younger children. And the other day I realized, well, maybe I can't go to daily mass, but I can watch daily mass in the morning, and EWTN has the mass, has the Rosary, Divine Mercy, you know, all of that. And I can watch that daily, and that really encourages the kids. So I do this thing too, where I take, the Knights of Columbus magazine my husband has, it comes in every month, and on the back they have vocation stories, and I always cut them out and put them up on the fridge so the kids is walking by, they might be able to read vocation stories. And there was one where he said he was from a homeschooling family, and he's like, my parents really prayed and spent time in the Word, and that really encouraged me to do the same thing. And I was like, that is so important, living a holy life, showing our kids how we're praying, showing them how we're focusing on the Lord in everything. And so I think that's one thing. So the letting go of social media as much as we can, de-influencing ourselves with all of that, really, really upping prayer time is so important. And then also having time where you're just quiet, where you're just listening to the Lord. I think that is so important as well. And then also for me now, what I'm doing is I'm just reading and listening to so much literature about God and the Christian experience. I mean, like, so much. I'm just trying to do that. And I'm also trying to get a couple of different books at the library, like every week if I can, and really focusing in on what really matters. So those are kind of, I guess, like 4 tips, I guess, that if you're wondering, like, I'm not going through this almost near death, whatever experience, or I wasn't close to death, but I really want to get my, priorities straight, or I really want to focus in on what God's calling me to. I would really encourage those things. I think are very helpful. And I mean, there's nothing like a big, like, boom experience to really help us to focus in on what really matters. But yeah, it was a total gift from the Lord, like him allowing that to happen, and then us getting there just in time and being able to walk away from it. I remember the drive when we left the hospital, and I was having a really hard time, but I remember looking around being like, I can't believe I'm seeing this street again. I can't believe I'm seeing that building again. And I just felt so grateful just to be in a car looking at the world around me again, and knowing that God had given me this time that I wouldn't have had, and how am I going to spend that time? And so, yeah. So anyway, I don't want to make this video too long. It's probably about 10 minutes, but I wanted to share my experience. If you guys had any, wanted to hear any suggestions or tips or whatever, I always feel so silly doing that, because unless someone asks me, I'm like, I don't need to say anything. But I thought, maybe if someone was interested. And just I made some little lists for myself. I'm trying to figure out how to make them into like a PDF for you guys. They're so simple. I don't even think anybody would want to print them out, but people were asking, just like simple little lists. And I'd love to just like put them in the description. So if you just want to click it and print it, just to have something where it's like, when you're struggling with this, and having like a list of little things to do. So I'm trying to figure out, my husband said Google Documents. So if you guys know how to do that, how to take something you put on Word and make it into like a document that anyone can have that link to, and they could print them out for free. Like, I don't know, if y'all know, leave in the comments. I need to research this. But anyway, so if you're new here, I'd love for you to subscribe and give this video a thumbs up. And I just wanted to share this experience of my life. And I'd love to hear any of your experiences in the comments below. If you've gone through something like this, where it's just kind of altered your life, and you're really, really hyper focused now on what you feel like God's calling you to, and all of that beautiful stuff that I feel like comes along when we walk with God and we experience His grace, and we just live in His love and mercy. Anyway, hope you guys have a great day. God bless. Bye.